Bryan Fischer for Sports Illustrated here at Big 12 Media Days. Thrilled to be joined by Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell. Matt, you're 10 now. Crazy as it is to hear that. Does it strike you as a little bit different going into this year?
Yeah, it's just unique. You know, it still feels like, in a lot of ways, it feels like year 1, 2, and 3. You know, time flies, but you're really grateful to be able to be somewhere for 10 years and certainly be able to do what we've been able to do over the last 10 years. You're really proud of it.
Well, I mean, last time you were here in Dallas-Fort Worth, I mean, you were in the Big 12 title game. How much have you watched that game? How much have you learned from that game? What do you take into 2025 now?
Oh, I think, you know, you have to have humility at the end of every season, and you have to be able to look at all the really good things you did, understand why, but you also have to step back and see, man, where some of those really tough setbacks were and understand why. And then sprint like heck to be able to, fill in the gaps and to grow. And, you know, the great thing for us is we've got the ability to grow greatness right now, in my opinion, in this team, in this program. And, you know, that's a challenge. You know, those are things that haven't really happened at Iowa State. And, you know, can you do that? Are we tough enough to do that? But I think we learned a lot of lessons last year. You know, we learned to persevere some really tough situations that came our way, probably the most injuries we've ever had to deal with. You know, we had the ability to stay the course in a lot of games and fight through some really hard. And I think some other areas, you know, some of those injuries, the season where we could have been better, some precision and detail that's made us our best. We didn't have it when we needed it. And so, you know, I think it gave us a great growth opportunity to take into January and really kind of sprint back and really be humble enough to grow as coaches and certainly players. But, man, you're really grateful that you got the group of people that decided to come back to Iowa State. Super proud of what that looks like and super proud of what this football team and program looks like as we get ready to head into the season.
I mean, where's that biggest area of growth for you coming in from last year into this year?
Well, I think the growth and probably equally the challenge because of what our schedule looks like this year, it's really going to be, are we tough enough, right? Are we mentally and physically tough enough to handle what's coming our way? You know, I think you're going to get everybody's best shot because of the season that you had a year ago, one. And then number two, playing week 0 against a tremendous Kansas State program. And then, playing the next 3 weeks against some really good opponents. You know, nobody's proven to be able to really handle playing in Ireland. You know, I think there's been some tough results post the Ireland game. So I think it'll be one of the most challenging schedules that we've had to play since we've been here. So, you know, I think if we're going to be the team we think we have the ability to become, we're going to have to be one of the toughest teams that we've ever coached and certainly ever played since I've been here at Iowa State.
Well, I mean, playing Farmageddon is always a difficult game,
right.
But putting it across the pond, what kind of added complexity does that give to you besides the travel?
Yeah, I do. I think the complexity is, you know, great rivalry games early in the season are a challenge. You know, we've had to live that because we've played Iowa always here early, you know, and I think when you look at some of the great rivalries, they're always played at the end of the season when teams have kind of formed their identity. And so I think it just puts the challenge of us being our best that much earlier in the football season. And I think that'll be a really unique challenge for us, especially two teams that I think are very similar, you know, two teams that build a program the same way. We got a lot of respect for what Coach Kleiman does and certainly the K-State program. But, you know, for us, it'll certainly demand us our best early in the football season.
When it comes to your quarterback, getting Rocco back in terms of another year, where do you see him kind of going after a pretty stellar campaign that he had last year?
Well, I think what I love about Rocco is he's just got this great curiosity about himself. You know, he wants to be great and he wants to be the best, and never selfishly for himself, for his teammates. And I think the biggest thing for Rocco is just his ability to continue to grow one game at a time. And I think what I love about Rocco is our entire locker room would fight for our quarterback. That's how much they believe in him. They believe in who he is. They believe in how he stands, what he stands for, how he handles himself. And I think it's because he's always been about the team that's made him really special. And then his ability to deliver in the big moments. You know, I mean, he's done as good a job of that as anybody that I've ever coached. And, you know, we've been really fortunate to have great quarterbacks, and Rocco's been able to do that as good as any of them. So, you know, we're super excited and proud of what he's about. And, you know, it's those other guys around him being able to step up and be able to play the way they need to play so we can be our best when our best is going to be needed.
Well, it's always easy as a quarterback to be able to throw to a couple NFL wide receivers.
You're right.
How are you looking at replacing some of those guys, and who's stepping up from the offense from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think the starting point when you talk about us offensively is it starts in that tight end room. We feel like we have one of the best tight end rooms in college football. We had a really tough loss last year. We thought Ben Bramer, going into his sophomore year, was one of the best tight ends in the country. We lost him midway through the season, and one of the blessings of that injury was the emergence of Gabe Burkle, who really the last 4 to 5 weeks of the season was probably as good as anybody. And to be able to have those two pillars coming back to build off of, and then you talk about what that running back room looks like with Carson Hansen and Abu Sama, and some really talented young players in that room to challenge those guys a little bit along the way. A veteran offensive line, you've got guys that really 5 starters back that have played a ton of football for us on that offensive line, and then you look at the wide receiver room. You have 2 freshmen last year that played big. Brett Eskelson probably won us the Cincinnati game last year with 5 huge catches and played great football. Dominic Overby had a really great start to his career. To see those guys really emerge, we're really excited about those guys. We had some transfers that came in. Xavier Townsend from UCF that's really come in and kind of had a great start to his campaign here at Iowa State. And Chase Soule came from East Carolina. Both those guys have great ability and certainly got the ability to create great competition in that wide receiver room. And a senior, Daniel Jackson, man who in 23 probably don't have the year we had in 23 without Daniel, and got hurt last year in fall camp, and we didn't have him for the season. So I'd say those 5 guys at the receiver position are going to be in a great fight and great competition to see who emerges to be the guys early in the season to be our best.
I mean, so many of the coaches that come through here at Big 12 Media Days, some of the roster turnover is 3/4 of their roster almost. How much does having that continuity that you guys have coming back into this year help you as a head coach?
Oh, I think it's monumental. I think, continuity has been the only way we've even been able to have success at Iowa State. And, I think that continuity revolves around, probably 3 really big areas. Number one, our staff that supports our football program, our nutrition team, our strength and conditioning team, our academic team, our, sports psych and mental health team. I think the second piece of that retention is falls in our coaching staff. We've been really fortunate to have great continuity there, and probably been a big difference maker for us to have that leadership. And then obviously third and most important is the continuity of our players staying home. And guys that have, we've recruited, they've stayed here, and probably over 20 of them probably could have left for a lot more money than they're making at Iowa State. And, for those guys to stay home and believe in what our culture is and want to fight for something bigger than themselves, you're really grateful for it. You take a great sense of gratitude and appreciation for that opportunity.
I mean, we're a week into the revenue share, Aaron, and you mentioned money. How weird is it for you as a head coach knowing, hey, there's a number attached to not only my roster, but that roster, that team that we're playing against all throughout the
Yeah, it's unique. And obviously, I think the evolution of college athletics just continues to evolve at a rapid pace. And, I still, when you talk about team and sport, I still don't think it's totally changed how you have success, though, right? It's playing for each other. It's, having this ability to have camaraderie and have this ability to be bigger than yourself. And, there's probably challenges with the landscape that we're in for those values, but I still think the ball's got to get kicked off and the game's got to get played, and it's still going to come down to the team that's got the ability to overcome adversity and play for each other that's still going to have a chance to have great success.
Has this changed, especially off the field? Has it allowed you almost, though, to get back to doing a little bit more coaching than, say, you once were?
Yeah, I don't know at Iowa State if it's been as, remarkably challenging as maybe some other places, because I feel like that's really been who we've been. We haven't kind of like tried to falter off of that landscape of knowing that coaching, developing relationship with our players, that's got to be our special sauce. That's got to be what separates us from everybody else. And, we really haven't wavered from that value system, no matter what the landscape around us has looked like. So we're really grateful. Probably it's allowed us to be even more distinct in our cultural values.
That Big 12 title game last year, obviously you're playing for a chance to go to the playoff. How much was that kind of also a factor in terms of motivation this offseason, in terms of, hey, we have that shot and we can get it again?
Well, I think it's certainly motivating, especially when you don't achieve the goal that you set out for, right? And I think anytime you fall short, it's if you're a competitor, there's great determination to grow, take the lessons learned, and figure out a way to take another huge step forward for your program.
Is the Big 12 nationally, do you think it's getting the reputation it deserves, given what you see on the field week in and week out?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the great things about this conference, top to bottom, is, boy, you better be ready to play. And, there are great coaches, there are great players, and there's a lot of parity right now in this conference. And I think there's no easy out. And the reality of this conference, if you're going to get to the finality of it and be on top, you've proven that you're a pretty darn good football team in the landscape of college football right now.
Yeah, tough times week in and week out here in the Big 12. Matt, thank you so much for joining us here at Sports Illustrated in the Big 12 Media Days.